Welcome to Nightmares Before Bed, a supernatural podcast where each show will explore dark and mysterious places, eerie creatures, and all things spooky and creepy. And speaking of spooky and creepy, please help me welcome your hosts Jonathan Rosen and Troy Cannon.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Nightmares Before Bed. I'm one of your hosts, Jonathan Rosen, along with Troy Cannon. And today we have a good one today, something to choice in. We're going to start talking about the Mothman. And this is my choice, but I'm going to let you've gone see that you have pictures in front of the statue. So you've gone to the area where the Mothman is, right? So you've gone there. Okay, so you want to explain what the Mothman is?
The Mothman, in the early to mid '60s, a group of people, two couples, were out, hanging out and everything, and they're on this long strip of road, and
it's in Point Pleasant, West Virginia.
Point Pleasant, yeah,
right.
And they claim to be the very well. They're said to be the very first people who saw it. It is a large, man-like bipedal entity with a 10 to 15 wingspan. Some people say it has no head. Other people say it has like an owl's head, so it's down below the shoulders. The head is below the shoulders. But either way, in the center of it, there's two big red eyes. Out of all of the people who describe,
if you could see that, right?
Such as that, yeah, right there. So either it is headless, which makes no sense, or it's an owl-like thing where its head is just, below its shoulders, and it's got two large eyes, blazing red ruby eyes, and there's no. From what I could find out, there was no indication that it ever harmed anyone. It scared the crap out of a lot of people, and possibly made phone calls and gave premonitions of upcoming danger.
That's the interesting thing that I read too about that. We'll talk about that after. But go ahead. But I read things that that the first recorded thing was the '60s, but I've read that there had been sightings of things. And people talked about these strange things years before that, though.
There are a lot of what I've discovered. I think I told you before. I was there's no specific class for it, but I studied the occult because I wanted to be a cryptozoologist / demonologist. And then I found out there's not really any money in it unless you become famous. So I stopped. But for years, I had studied a lot of things. And from what I had gathered, most of America's deep-rooted lore, Bigfoot, Loch Ness monster, well, not Loch Ness, but like Champ and stuff like that. They're rooted in Native American culture. Mm-hmm. So people are saying, hey, there's Bigfoot, and they're like, oh yeah, the hairy man, yeah, he's out there, we've seen him. So it's like that. So with the Mothman, today we're saying, yeah, we've learned about it in the '60s, but the Native Americans are looking at us like, come on, it's been here forever. I mean, when something gets categorized as a known entity, like take the gorilla. The gorilla was told to civilized man for decades, and they're like, wait, you're telling me there's a hairy dude walking around with 10 times the strength of a human, sleeping on the ground, out there in the woods, and nobody's ever seen it? And they're like, no, I'm telling you because we've seen it. And it was decades before when gorillas were spoken about to when they were actually categorized. So things like the Mothman, it's similar. We know about it today, but Native Americans, they've talked about it forever. Like, look, dude, we've seen it. We've seen it before. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I would trust them first.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, it started talking about the '60s, but the '60s, some of the things I was reading make sense too. First of all, once you have someone reporting it. It's like UFOs and like, big. Once you have someone reporting something, there are going to be people. Oh yeah, I saw it too. I saw it, and that's whether or not it's real. It could be real that they saw it, and they finally feel, empowered to start talking about it. Or now we have also the power of suggestion. That someone like, oh yeah, well maybe that shadow that I saw that could have been the Mothman. I saw that too. And we also talked about 60s. It's not the height of, but it's pretty close to the height of the Cold War. So we have people are seeing all these strange things and they don't know what it is. Now, what's that in the sky? Is that a Russian missile coming in, or is it something else? So there are people looking for things, and power of suggestion is a lot too. Not saying that there's not anything. Not saying that there is something, but there is a lot of things to go in power of suggestion. But I did find it interesting that there have been stories, just like you said, Native American, legends going on. There have been stories of this even before the first reported things.
Yeah, it's like and the possibility that people are seeing one thing and thinking it's something else is such a widespread thing that it's even in comic books. In the beginning of comic books, Clark Kent would take off his glasses, jump through the air, and start flying. And people would see a human being flying across the air, and they would say, "Look, up in the sky, it's a bird." And someone else would say, "Nah, I don't think so. It's a plane." No, I don't think it's a plane. How did you confuse a human being with a plane? It's so deep in our culture that we misconstrue things. That even with Superman, the opening of Superman, people see him flying, and the artists and the writers were like, you know what? They're not going to get what that is. Nobody ever gets what it is at first. And they wrote, it's a bird, it's a plane. No, it's Superman. Because they know, even in pop culture, they know that when you see something, there's a really good chance that you're describing something that you're not seeing. You're seeing one thing and you're describing something else. So the Mothman, there's a crane. I can't remember which particular crane. I think it's the third largest bird in America is in that area. And there are large owls also in that area. So they say that it's possible that people see these large birds. And one of the cranes, I'm sure it's going to show up on the screen because later on I'm going to look it up because I can't remember it.
And you put it in there.
I'll put it in there. But
you can start a voiceover of you saying it now if you want.
Thank you, Jonathan. That's the sandhill crane, 4 foot tall with a 7 foot wingspan. Now back to the 4 foot tall bird with like an 8 or 9 foot long wingspan that has red on its neck. And it's saying when its head is down, it looks like, the wings are out and there's red here. So they're saying that particular crane is something that people could be mistaking. They're also saying that there was a military field near there,
right,
where they were doing experiments. And it's possible that this could be some type of mutated thing. And with that being a thing, that still doesn't show how the indigenous people, the Native Americans, saw it, 100, 200 years ago. So with that, and those particular birds, I don't know how long they've been in the area. So that's a thing too. Now I went to because I dig this stuff. So I'm traveling across country, and I'm like, oh.
Well, so before you get to that, one second.
Okay.
You're talking about stuff there because this area of West Virginia. I want to hear your story because we started talking about it, before, but I want to hear it now on air. So, if that part of West Virginia, because you have a lot of wooded areas, and wooded areas you start hearing sounds, seeing things, and and some of those areas are so dense you don't know what's there. So I was looking; they have several legends over there. I mean, Bat Boy, the Flatwoods Monster. So there are a lot of things that people are talking. It could all be the same thing, that people are calling different things too. But it's conducive to legends. It's conducive to creatures that you don't know what they are. You don't know what you're seeing in the woods when you go out late at night see shadows run across. Like, uh-oh, I got to get out of here. You don't know what that is. All right, so let me hear you answer this. You went down there, and this is, I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued. And you're going to have to put in right here, put that picture of you right by the Mothman statue. But let's,
I'll stick it right there.
right.
When a picture of a dead sexy dude shows up standing next to a giant metal, yeah, that'll be me. I'll be the one that's not made out of metal. I went to Point Pleasant, and I'm driving through there, and I wanted to see the Mothman Museum.
Mm-hmm.
It's really not that big. It's like the size of a small house. It's not that too terribly large, but I went to see it, and I've noticed other YouTubers have gone there as well and stood next to it. I didn't think to make a whole video there or everything, but I got a little bit of footage, a little bit of video, but I stood next to it, and the size of it.
The Mothman Museum curator wants to come on, by the way. If you see this, we'd love to have you. But go ahead.
Yeah, because we could. That guy does interviews. We could call him, man. Well, so I saw the statue. The statue is enormous. Not like like Godzilla, but it's like 11 feet.
Yeah, it's a big statue.
It's huge. And I go across the street because the traffic's going this way, traffic's coming inbound, outbound. Right in the center of the traffic is where the statue is. Mm-hmm. And there's an area where you can stand safely. But if you cross the street if you're facing the statue, cross the street to the left, then you're at the museum. Cross the street to the right, and there's an eatery where they also have a ton of their legend, their lore there. And I figured there'd be, just Mothman pictures and stuff like that. But they've got like an hour-long video of people talking about seeing it and stuff like that. You can buy the Richard Gere, Greer. You can buy his movie. Yeah. And is it Gere? You can watch Richard Gere, yeah. Movie. And then I'm walking around. I'm seeing a Mothman. And then I go a little bit further in, and I'm starting to see Bigfoot stuff. I'm like, Bigfoot? Is that here too? And then I go further in, and I'm almost at the very end. Because like I said, when you enter the door, if you took 30 steps, you're at the back of the building. It's not really big. But when I'm almost at the back, there's two gigantic statues of the Men in Black.
Oh.
And I'm like, well, what's that? What's that? So I got to the girl was there the day I went. So I got her, and I'm like, hey, man, what's up with these Men in Black?
So you're talking about Men in Black we talked about in the previous episode, or the movie? What are we talking about?
Well, it was the Men in Black, according to the woman, show up for a lot of the sightings.
Uh-huh. Wow. So
people see the Mothman, and if the government or the aliens or whoever think that there's some validity to what they've seen and told people about, the Men in Black show up for whatever reason. One of the phone calls a person received was supposedly from a man in black that told him, don't talk about that Mothman. It's none of your business. And the next day they showed up, and the guy said that they were two, like two walking cadavers. They looked like they were dead. And they walked up and told him, don't do this, don't do that. They made some threats, and then they left. But several people supposedly had seen them. So in the museum, they tied the Bigfoot mythology and the Men in Black mythology. It's all twisted together. Now, to be honest, at that point, at that very moment, I had never heard that there was a connection with Men in Black and the Mothman.
Right.
So when I heard that, my first thought was, well, they're selling a lot of crap in the front of the store: T-shirts, mugs, badges, maps. Because they got maps. You can go out into the woods where you supposedly have seen him. People have seen him.
The maps of the sightings. They have maps of where sightings.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm thinking this is just their propaganda. This is just part of their bag. They're just shotgunning, mythology against the wall, hoping somebody says, "Oh man, wow, Men in Black. Oh man, now."
That'll be the tourist trap thing, right?
It's a tourist trap. Yeah. So that's what I was thinking. But when you suggested we do this episode, I started, watching other videos and watching the History Channel and different stuff like that, getting some ideas. And I was like, wow, the Men in Black thing has actually happened, and I just didn't know about it. So that kind of blew my mind. But it was an interesting museum. I took a lot of pictures. That one I got standing in front of the statue. I mean, because I'm 5'10", or just, in my naked feet, almost 5'11". I'm just under the 6 foot mark. And this statue was, I don't know, 3 or 4 feet taller than me. And if it is based on the actual sightings, on actual people's memory of what they saw, I don't want to run into that thing in the middle of the night.
But yeah, but so you read. I watched certain things too. I watched a lot of special. I read a lot of things on this as well. So we saw, right. It was first talked about in the '60s, and then it started coming into like prominence more. I started reading. What I'm sure you read the John Keel book that came out in 1975, the Mothman Prophecies. That's the one that they did the Richard Gere movie with Laura Linney on 2002. But they changed a lot of the book around to make it for a movie. So, but like we said, there has been stuff before then. But it's interesting that there are sightings, and we talked about, you mentioned the Harbinger of Doom, that when you see Mothman, you should know that bad things will follow. Right. So it's like, that was the first thing, the 1967, it showed up, people saw it before the Silver Bridge collapsed, it killed over 40 people. So afterwards, people claimed that they saw Mothman standing on the bridge or there flying by the bridge the day before. And Mothman has been seen based on other disasters, other catastrophes that they've seen Mothman beforehand. So that was the question, whether Mothman was like good or evil. But the report said it snatched up animals. I've not read anything that snatched up people yet. So I don't know if you read that, but I have not seen anything of people. But I've read about reports of it snatching up animals. And so the question was whether seeing Mothman is, evil's going to happen. So it's like a negative thing, or as a warning to people, stay clear of this area, that something bad is going to happen. So that it's like kind of helping people out. So that was an interesting little thing to me, that, questioning what the Mothman motives are. So I don't know. You've not read anything with people, right?
I haven't heard anything about it physically attacking people, but I've read stories about people saying that they've seen it in their yard, on their
chasing
roof.
them in the car. I read that though.
Chasing them in the car. We're like you said, wherever it appears, it is either bringing catastrophe,
right,
or it's warning of catastrophe. But wherever it's at, there's going to be catastrophe. So I personally, if I saw the Mothman, I'd be like, oh, okay, well, I'm not going there.
right.
It's on a bridge. I'm not taking a bridge. It's next to a firehouse. It's going to be a fire. I would see that as a thing, because people have said more times than not that its appearance brought some type of doom. Something I also read was, when they stopped seeing it, when the mass sightings ended, I think it was within a year, they started seeing it in Chicago.
Right.
Which I was like, why was
this story's in Kentucky too? Kentucky and Chicago.
Okay, in Kentucky. So I'm thinking, are there more than one? Are they angels? Because in the Bible, the angel isn't. I mean, when they're talking to a guy, usually they look like a person.
Right.
But they can be like the Metatron and be a gigantic burning bush, or they can be Gabriel and have multiple, animal heads and multiple wings. They don't really look human normally. So is this, the image of an angel, and we're just seeing an actual? Well, not me. They are just seeing an actual angel. Or, I mean, if you think about it, the way the Bible describes angels, the way the Bible describes demons, they kind of look alike. So
they're like cousins, kind of. They're the same. They're cut from the same cloth, different directions, kind of a little bit.
Yeah. So I wonder, it could, because what you said, like with Kentucky and Chicago, it could be that they're seeing one demonic or angelic figure here, and then seeing a completely different one there, but they look alike because they're both cut from the same cloth.
Right.
Like you said, they could be very well the same thing. Or it could be just the same dude, man, just flying around. He's like, well, I told those guys to watch out for the bridge and they didn't listen to me. Let me go tell these guys in Kentucky and Chicago and see if they listen. But whatever it is, so many people have, I mean, it could be mass hysteria. I think
Chicago sightings are recent, like in the past couple of years, the Chicago sightings.
Okay, I knew of them. I didn't know the timeline. Okay, so that's
and like in the 2020s. I mean, Chicago things that I've read that there have been certain things, which, and I find it interesting with the Chicago, like, we think of like West Virginia and Kentucky, and like, I'm not no disparaging those places because, they're all nice place, but you think of them more as like secluded in your mind, like, secluded, like, a lot of woods around too. When you start saying Chicago, that's like by buildings, like, metropolitan centers. That I found interesting that, people in like these urban now centers are saying this.
People like you said, people who in the more, I don't want to say yeehaw, but I guess I just said
that's what I meant.
The more those areas,
you're talking about rural and urban. That's what to me. That's what you see. Yeah. That's you saw them in rural areas before, like thinking West Virginia, Kentucky. Chicago's not that.
Yeah, and I think because like in those areas, they're more accustomed to those customs. And an entity like Bigfoot or Mothman or something like that, he's got room to roam. But in a big city,
right?
In a metropolitan city, you got blocks and cities and concrete and buildings. It's not as easy, for something to sneak around and hide around. Because where'd you see it? I saw it out in the woods. It's a lot of woods. Where'd you see it? Oh, it just turned on 4th and Hudson. You can identify it. It's easier to identify it in a bigger city. So the fact that it's gone there and people are starting to see it, I think adds more credence to the fact that there could be something there.
Well, I'll say this, if it is in Chicago, as opposed to the more rural areas, and it does eat humans, there's a bigger food supply in Chicago than there would be in these other areas. Yeah. You were not there for the festival, right? There is a Mothman festival in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. So there is a festival. You were not there for the festival, right?
I didn't get the festival. I would have liked to have seen that and talked to some more people because the woman that was at the shop, she was knowledgeable. She knew about everything that was in the shop, but her attitude was, I was tired of working at McDonald's. That was her attitude.
It's a job.
She's like, oh, it's just a job, man. Don't believe this crap. That was her attitude. I'm into it. So she was feeding me this information. And I was like, there might be something to that. But she's like,
if you're working at a place, you might want to have someone that's like all into it. Yes, this thing happened here. And, try to get the boy like enthusiastic about it. Yeah, it's a Mothman. Someone saw it there. Yeah, whatever. Instead of that. But so you did you get to talk to any? That's the main thing that was interesting. Did you get to talk to any people around town, like about the Mothman, like finding out what they feel?
The curator at the museum and a waitress and an ice cream server at the restaurant across the street, and both of them. Well, they should have been working at the building because those guys, they're just serving hamburger and hot dogs and ice cream. But those guys talked about it. They said there's aliens there too. But those guys talked about it as if, their first cousin got snatched away or they got chased by it. They talked about it like they had firsthand knowledge, which was kind of interesting. They talked about, they had a name for the aliens. I can't remember. It wasn't Foo Fighters, but it was another thing that they called them. I'll try to remember what it was, but I probably got it in my my thing of pictures. But because I snap pictures of everything, but they talked about it, and I saw a recent video where these guys went there and they went to the museum and they went and saw the statue and they went and they talked to the actual guy, but they went to the restaurant, same restaurant I was in and everything. They've got a pizza pie that's made to look like the Mothman. And if I would have known that, I would have had that pie. So I just got a burger and an ice cream. But there were people there. Not that woman that worked there, because she probably gets bombarded by questions, 100 questions a day. But the women that worked across the street, they seem to really be motivated to the fact that there is actually something going on.
Mm-hmm.
So that was interesting.
That's what I was curious. If the people in the town believe or not. I mean, it's a lifeblood of the town. People go there, for it's like such a small place. I read. So you were there. You can tell me better. But it's such a small place. But they have, when the festival happens, they said 10,000 people come in to go to this Mothman festival. So that is a lifeblood. You would think like everyone in town would want to be like, yes, Mothman's real. Come on over. Instead, or you could be like, like maybe us, like, I don't want these tourists around. No, get out.
Yeah. Well, it was okay. Coming through Florida, when I hit Tampa, it takes about, on the highway, doing 75 miles an hour, it takes about 20 minutes to drive through Tampa, something like that. If I had not stopped for the museum doing the same thing, less than 5 minutes, I would have went boom right through it. It's really, really small. It's Gulfport.
Okay.
It's like Gulfport. It's small. It's just a series of blocks, and it was tiny. But the people.
Is it a nice town? Or?
It was nice. It was clean. It was. I don't want to say it was a biker bar, but it looked like a biker bar was attached to the back of the building where the museum was. So when we pulled up, I was like, yeah, we're not getting out here, man. But then I saw other people getting out and they're walking around and they're looking around and taking pictures. And I was like, this must be the place. Because, it's the first time I'd been there. So I pulled up to where the thing told me to go. And I didn't realize I was in the back of the building. So in the back, it looked like, a place where somebody's going to hit somebody in the head with a bottle. Yeah, I was nervous about getting out. I took a picture of that too. So it looked like, and then there was this guy. I consider myself a rugged prototype of man. I've said that. But this guy.
As do we all, Troy. We all consider you that. Yes.
This guy had to be 6'4", 6'6".
Oh,
and he looked like he weighed enough that 5 other smaller men should have been floating around him in his gravitational pull. He was huge. And he had on the traditional biker stuff. He had on like leather stuff and he had patches all over him. And I was like, yeah, he's a biker. He's probably the guy that they send to other people's houses when they do wrong. So this gigantic, gargantuan behemoth of a human being is slowly walking through the parking lot. So I'm thinking, I'm taking my family into this biker bar. It gave me the wrong address. So I'm trying to figure out where it's at. And then I'm seeing like this 5'1" guy with his wife, and he's pushing a kid and his wife's pregnant and she's walking over, and I'm thinking, okay, well, she's walking over and I'm thinking to myself, you know what, it's gotta be okay, because there's no way that this woman who looks like she's still nursing is going into the biker bar. I'm looking around and everything, and I start to notice, maybe 3, 4, 5 people walking around. One person, one little kid's got an ice cream. And I'm like, I've never been in a biker bar, but I'm pretty sure little kids with ice creams can't go in there. So everybody gets out, we get out of the car, and I walk towards the building, and a guy looks at me like, he's just slightly shaking his head like, that's the wrong door. So I see him, and I'm like, okay. So I walk around, and then all of a sudden I saw all of the stuff. But for some reason, there's this one spot that is probably best to walk past. You know what? I don't know. Those people might be all great people. They might work at the museum, for all I know. But it looked like I was in the wrong place. But so I went from dangerous people to monsters, which, is pretty much my life.
Which is scarier. Right. So at the end of the day, do we believe in a Mothman? Do we believe that there's something there?
I think there's something there, even if it is something that they are misidentifying. Even if it's one of those cranes, the people are seeing too many. I think too many people have seen it for it to be mass hysteria. It's possible. It's very possible but I have a strong belief in these things, the unknown, and I think something wacky has happened or is still happening there.
I'm along the same lines as you for the most. I don't know what there, but I tend to believe, or I tend to believe in a lot of things. Also, not everything, but there. I think there are things that we have not found yet. That there are things that are still lurking out there that that can't be explained. So, and there are a lot of tales, and there's a lot of suggestion, and putting suggestion in your mind and everything, and a lot of imagination. I know that, yeah. But I tend to believe that there's so much land that has not been really explored, some dense forests and woods that we don't know what's in there. That maybe there's something lurking. Maybe I'm more apt with Bigfoot than a Mothman, because a Mothman has to fly. But I'm willing to err on the side of, yeah, there might be something there.
I think it's something. I don't know what, but the fact that people were saying that they saw the Men in Black makes me think that it could possibly be some type of otherworldly, instead of supernatural thing, some otherworldly thing. Because why did those dudes show up if, in fact, that did happen? So I don't know.
Well, let us know. Let us know in the comments if any of you have seen that. If you believe in Mothman, don't believe. If you had experiences with Mothman, if you've seen anything, we're interested in knowing. And again, this has been Nightmares Before Bed. I'm Jonathan Rosen, along with Troy Cannon. And please like, comment, and subscribe.
Thank you for watching Nightmares Before Bed. And now, it's time to shut the lights, close your eyes, and go to sleep, if you can.